Excelsior, true believers! You are about to embark upon a journey, a trip to the 70s and 80s when mighty Marvel Comics ruled over all. The Defenders, Doctor Strange, the Champions, Deathlock, the Submariner, the Incredible Hulk, Killraven, the Son of Satan, the Macabre Man-Thing, and all your other Bronze Age favorites every week appearing on Defenders Dialogue. Now here are your guides, Christopher Golden and Brian Keene.
Excelsior, true believers.
Excelsior indeed, Chris. Good to be back with you once again. This is my one sane little island of comfort in the midst of this continuing chaos.
Hey, you know what? And Brian, if we can provide an island of comfort to the three people who listen to this show, then it makes me really happy. That's all the more reason to do it.
I told you, as your boss now, you can't say three people listen to this show anymore.
Well, listen, I'm going to say something and I want to make it perfectly clear. I know that you live in Brian world inside your brain. That's one of your great charms, but you're not the boss of me, and no one ever will be the boss of me except Connie Golden.
Let's
make that and Lily Golden. Let's make that clear.
I think Connie Golden is the boss of us all. Speaking of people who live inside their brains and think they're the boss of each other, today we're going to be looking at Giant Size Supervillain Team Up number 2, starring Doctor Doom and Prince Namor, the Submariner.
Both of whom live inside their brains and think they're the boss of everyone.
Exactly. Who would win in a fight, do you think? I think we're about to find out, aren't we?
Well, look, I mean, I think in this case, it's going to be decided by Roy Thomas, who is the writer and editor on this book, drawn by Mike Sikowski and Sam Granger, who share the duties of doing pencils and inks. But honestly, Brian, I have to say that I think Doom has got to win in every single scenario, because Doom in my mind, and again, I like Namor better, but Doom in my mind is basically like the Batman of supervillains.
Oh, absolutely. Dr. Doom is the greatest supervillain of all time, hands down. He's not my favorite, but he's the greatest. I mean, this is a supervillain who not once, but twice in Marvel continuity has obtained the powers of God, the creator, Yahweh, Allah, whatever you want to call him. You don't see the Red Skull or Paste Pot Pete. That's not doing that.
Sorry, the name checking of Paste Pot Pete has sent me over the edge today.
Or Joe the Gorilla. Remember him from our
Joe the Gorilla. Joe the Gorilla doesn't have the charms of Paste Pot Pete, I'm sorry to say. The alliterative nature of Marvel Comics reached its apex with Paste Pot Pete.
It did. Hey, why don't you tell folks what the opening is? I'm going to get up and walk away from the mic and turn off the heat because it keeps coming on in the background. and I'm worried that our good engineer, Matt Willison, whose brand new book, Horrors Untold Volume 2, just came out, I'm worried that he won't be able to edit the sound of the heater out.
All right, that's fine. I can't hear it, but I thought that's fine. So weirdly, the title of this is To Bestride the World. And I really would like to call Roy Thomas, and I don't really know Roy. I've only talked to him once, but I'd like to ask him if that is grammatically correct, because I don't think it is. Do you think it is? Is To Bestride the World grammatically correct, Brian?
Chris, come on. Look who you're asking.
Because bestride the world, I understand. And to stride the world, I understand. But to bestride the world, bestride is not a verb, I don't think. But I could be completely wrong. And I'm sure that Hank Wagner is listening to this and is going to tell me that I'm wrong. But
I can top that. Jack Haringa listens weekly.
Oh, well, if Jack listens, then Jack, please post and let us know if I am incorrect I assume, Jack, that you will say I am whether I am or not.
Exactly.
All right, Brian, that's as far as I got. So Namor is emerging from the ocean. Doom awaits him on land. Part 1, the slaying of a Titan. They call her, Brian, there was a weird obsession in the late 70s and early 80s with giant ships. So we open with this enormous, yacht.
500,000 ton oil tanker.
Yes, sorry.
Yeah.
But they begin, the line that starts it is, they call her super ship. Wait, it gets better. They call her super ship that do speak of her. It's like, no, they don't.
Yeah, I had a quibble. Now, I'm an ex-sailor. And Roy Thomas's dialogue here, even in the caption boxes, sailors do not talk like pirates from 1930s pirate movies. Okay. we don't. But yeah, I had a quibble with the way the dialogue and the caption boxes are written here in regards to the ship, but I have been on a similar ship. This is a 500,000 ton oil tanker called the Typhoeus. And it is, heading south around the Cape of Good Hope, and the Middle East. I've sailed through that area as well. And these types of ships are common. What isn't common is what these two sailors out on the deck see rising out of the ocean. And that is, of course, Prince Namor, the Submariner.
The Prince Namor, the Submariner on, a thing that would have made a perfect toy in this era. Weirdly, it's a kind of a surface. It's sort of like, marked with the logo of Namor's trident. It's like the land speeder that Luke Skywalker has in Star Wars, only, it's skimming over the ocean. Namor is standing on it, and clearly it also is a submersible, but it's just weird because, why does he need this?
It's very weird.
Why? Again, he could swim as fast as this thing can go, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Because he's Namor.
Namor, he pulls out his giant conch shell bullhorn and he tells the crew, turn your vessel around and return to your original port or suffer the consequences.
Yeah.
And the captain's like, who does that pointy-eared pirate think he's dealing with?
The Submariner is never more Brian Keene-like than in this moment. Or suffer the consequences. I feel like you should change the title of your podcast to "Or Suffer the Consequences." All right, go ahead.
No, I identify with Namor in this sequence. They open fire, and Namor's like, "Oh, so that's your answer, is it? You're going to shoot at me? Prepare to abandon ship. You have 5 minutes." To Namor's credit, he tells them, you have 5 minutes, and then I'm gonna, destroy your ship. Right. So I think he's playing fair here. But
he does warn them.
Yeah, he does warn them. What we find out, we kind of glossed over the two sailors that were standing on the deck. One of them's an old salt, and the other one is, young recruit. And what we find out is the old salt remembers Namor from World War II, from the Golden Age comic books when Marvel was still timely. And we get a neat little flashback sequence to that of reminding us that Namor in the Golden Age was often the villain, declaring war on the surface world. Then we come back to the present, and Namor is using his submersible to drill holes into the side of the ship.
Well, and I love, too, that it's not like he blows a hole in the side of the ship. He's got this thing that drills maybe 2-inch wide or 4-inch wide holes, bore holes in the hull. And that's enough to immediately and rapidly sink the ship. The super ship. And, but again, to his credit, maybe an inspiration for or inspired by Greenpeace in the day. Namor says, hear me, men of the Typhus, it is not my wish that you should suffer for the sins of the malefactors of greed I have already radioed nearby craft to rescue you. And he basically says, look, this is it. You know, you won't intrude on the domain of Atlantis. But the weird thing, Brian, is this is all a show.
Yeah.
They was putting on a show for the surface world so they don't find out the secret of Atlantis.
That's right. Now, we mentioned on last week's episode, I told you if you had the ability to do so, you might want to check out for Doctor Doom's backstory, early issues of Astonishing Tales, and for Namor's backstory, issues of the Submariner series, which had recently been canceled. And it was canceled on a cliffhanger because it turns out all the other Atlanteans, all of them, are in a state of suspended animation, and Namor can't wake them from it.
This is kind of a cool plot point. You know, like, in a weird way, I'd like to see, you know, we all know that it won't be forever until Namor appears in the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Yep.
And as a counterpoint to the way that Warner Brothers presented Aquaman, it would be kind of cool if they introduced Namor in the way that they did in the original Fantastic Four, where he was this like, this guy, a homeless guy with no memory, who's super strong and nobody knows who he is or where he comes from because he has amnesia. And then, you know, when eventually he wakes from that amnesia, it would be cool if he like goes down to rediscover Atlantis and all the Atlanteans are in this suspended animation.
It would be very cool.
Sort of like a horror film instead of the sort of Aquaman type giant Lord of the Rings Under the Sea story, which I think would be, you know, I don't want to see them just do what Aquaman did. Exactly.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. Maybe someone will be listening to this. Maybe Kevin Feige is listening to this and
I doubt that.
He'll tech us to write it. You know who does listen every week? C. Robert Cargill.
Who does?
Co-scripter of Doctor Strange. So Cargill, if you're listening,
there you go.
You know, point us out to whoever's in charge over there at the MCU. So yeah, Namor is he's distraught over the plight of his people. You know, his cousin Namorita. Everybody is in the suspended animation, and while he's thinking about this, an explosion bursts through the force field that surrounds Atlantis,
leading us to part 2, when monarchs meet.
Dun dun dun.
And I do hope, sort of like they included Luke Cage saying "Sweet Christmas" in the Luke Cage Netflix series, I really hope that when we do see Namor, that we hear him yell "Neptune's trident." I love that all these characters have their own unique way of saying "motherfucker."
Yeah, Hulk smash, it's clobbering time.
Neptune's trident, "Sweet Christmas."
By the Crimson Bands of Cyttorak.
That's a little bit more long-winded, but that is Doctor Strange.
That is. I always preferred the Punisher's way of saying it, which was not to say anything at all. It was just to pull the trigger. But anyway, yeah, Namor finds that Atlantis is invaded. There's all these underwater submersible craft. They're being piloted by humanoid figures in diving suits.
Yes, who have emblazoned upon their suits an insignia that is a lightning bolt in a circle. They're not employees of the Flash.
No. Lightning bolt in a circle is, of course, the symbol of Latveria, the very small country that Doctor Doom is in charge of.
Exactly. So when we have this fight, Namor makes short work of this massive invasion force because he is underwater after all. And by the way, we should press pause for a second, Brian, and mention that this outfit, is probably the outfit that is least annoying on Namor.
The black pants, black shirt with the little wings coming off of it.
Yeah. It's, you know, the thing is when he's just in his underpants, I never can take him seriously.
Oh, see, I like Namor in his underpants. That was Remember, my introduction to Namor was in the pages of the Defenders. So, and that's all he ever wore in the Defenders. So that's what I think of him as.
I know, but it's so stupid. I mean, I understand when he's undersea that he's, that's fine. He's got his bathing trunks on, but, I mean, I don't know. Like if he ever appears on screen, he can't just be in his underpants.
No. I'll see our collaboration.
Unless he's portrayed by our dear friend, Bracken McLeod.
Yeah, I could see Bracken cast as Namor.
And today, the day that we are recording this, Brian, it won't be heard by our listeners for a few days, but the day we are recording this is Bracken McLeod's 50th birthday.
Is it really?
Today. So a hearty Excelsior and happy birthday.
Excelsior indeed, Bracken. We're gonna cast you in our Namor movie for the Marvel Cinematic Universe. You'll have to shave though.
I think he'd prefer to play Dr. Druid, but that's a whole other. It'd be a buff Dr. Druid. Anyway.
Speaking of doctors, Namor finally rips the diving mask off one of these humanoids and sees the metal mask of Doctor Doom.
Indeed. You left off there. I'm waiting with bated breath for the revelations.
Well, of course it's not Doom. It's one of Doom's many robots. Doom informs
one of the
him.
Doom bots.
Yeah, Doom informs him that, the real him is waiting on the surface. But he has to leave within 5 seconds because the submersible is going to blow up.
Yeah, exactly. This message will implode. Anyway, will self-destruct. Anyway, so Namor surfaces and encounters Doom awaiting him. And it's yet again, Brian, this ongoing debate between these two. It's like one of those on-again, off-again bad romances.
It really is.
It's like, I love you, I hate you. Well, actually, I love you now. No, too late, I hate you now. But once again, they're talking about teaming up, which is the title of this, Supervillain Team Up.
It is. Doom.
Then we have pages of them debating the relative merits of their association.
Right. And as they're doing that, they're walking through Doom's castle in Latveria. And we are reminded again that, I don't know how much of this we want to talk about. First of all, that Latveria has become a nuclear world power. But that the workforce in Latveria, it's not just the people, it's the androids that Doom builds.
Yeah. Which all have a number.
Yeah.
And now, Brian, all of this is prelude to get us back, to basically fix what happened in the previous thing and to create a loose association between these two characters to get us to the story of chapter 3 in here, the armies of Andro.
That's right. Just to show off how the androids follow orders and don't think for themselves. Doom orders 2 of them to fight to the death. For Namor's entertainment. Doom says, I'm glad you're pleased with this display. And then we see that the androids are praying before some sort of altar. The other androids have laid the body of their slain brother before it. Doom says this is just a minor flaw which has crept into their programming. They're establishing their own primitive religions, but like most religions, it's harmless.
Yeah, exactly. And I love for a guy as brilliant as Doctor Doom, for him not to see that these mindless androids deciding that they all of a sudden have a religion and they're worshiping something other than Doctor Doom. For him not to see that this is going to be a problem is hubris at its finest.
Yeah, it is. It is. And that's always been Doom's downfall, his own hubris.
Exactly.
So he and Namor walk away, and they don't see the gaunt yet powerful blue-skinned figure seemingly as emotionless as those who bow before him, suddenly appear from nowhere into the very midst of the androids. He's drawn and described exactly like Dr. Manhattan.
Honestly, that was my immediate thought as well.
Yep, but keep in mind, this character predates Dr. Manhattan by at least 15 years. So very, very cool. Meanwhile, Doom is showing off to Namor that Latveria has the world's first workable array of solar batteries. Now, Chris, I went and researched this. This was 1975.
Yeah.
And, today, solar power is a big thing everywhere in our lives. And Namor even says, amazing. According to surface estimates, the practical harnessing of solar power is still decades away. It's weird reading this now. Reading this as a kid, this was science fiction. Reading it now as a 52-year-old adult, it's like, oh, isn't that cute? How back then, this seemed like science fiction, and now we're living it. I don't know.
No, it is cool, and I love the giant mechanism inside. This is sort of the fun stuff when you're writing certain comics, to be able to tell the artist, hey, it looks like that thing that Doctor Doom has in his castle. There's you'll have to show that image of just the hey, it's a giant apparatus out of a James Bond movie. Nobody knows what it does. But yeah, so the androids have brought a costume with the number 1 to their interesting blue god. And Doom is introducing solar power to Namor. I also appreciate, Brian, the fact that, again, Namor and Doom want to call each other, dickhead and asshole and whatever, but instead you have to hear the disdain dripping from words like amphibian and Latverian. And when they're speaking to one another dismissively, in that way, you can tell that there's this sort of dismissive quality, to words like amphibian and Latverian and,
Right. Now, what Doom's plan is here, folks, he wants to merge the empires of Latveria and Atlantis together. As he points out, the world is going to run out of fossil fuels very soon. Keep in mind, this was in 1975. And, if he and Namor can corner the market on solar power, they can rule the world without having to fire a shot, and then when they do that, he can keep Latveria safe and Namor can wake his people up from slumber. It's a good plan.
The thing is, if Doom and Namor had been successful, we wouldn't be in the environmental crisis we're in now.
We would not. So it's really all the fault of the Fantastic Four and the Champions and the Avengers that this didn't come to pass.
Exactly.
But Doom is so committed to this. He's even come up with a new flag for both their nations that incorporates the lightning bolt and circle for Latveria and the trident, the seal of Atlantis. So Doom is being genuine with Namor here. Unfortunately, this moment is interrupted.
They're interrupted by a swarm of androids who are revolting against Doom's rule, under the direction of our blue character, who's now in a fascinating costume of his own, and he introduces himself as Andro. But once upon a time, shrouded like a mummy, Doom referred to him as Doomsman.
That's right. Now, if you went back and read those early issues of Astonishing Tales, which I did because even though we're not covering it on the show, I've been going back through and rereading Kazar, and those were his early appearances. He and Doctor Doom both appeared in the book. We get a flashback to that whole sequence here. He was one of the first androids that Doom created, and it was an android with Doctor Doom's mind, but without Doom's willpower, so that he would supposedly never betray Doom. But in fact, he did. He rose up against Doom, and Doom sent him into eternal exile in another dimension, which again, if you look at the panels here, shades of Dr. Manhattan standing on Mars.
Yeah, that was my immediate thought too.
Yep.
I literally thought, I wonder if Alan Moore read this issue.
That, or, just subconscious influence, which happens a lot in comics, Well,
and that's an interesting point, because doing this show, how many times have we stumbled over something and gone, I didn't realize that this scene in this comic book had such an impact on me, but clearly it did.
Yeah, as we talked when we were covering the Defenders, J.M. DeMatteis's character Null the Living Darkness. I didn't realize it until we covered it on this show, but that completely informed my novel Darkness on the Edge of Town and Ghost Walk.
Yeah.
It's weird, the things that stay in your subconscious. But anyway, Andro escaped that other dimension. He hitched a ride with the Thing and Lockjaw, who happened to be teleporting through.
Yeah.
And now he's back in Latveria.
Now he's back to become a god and lead an android rebellion, which is successful to a certain extent. Namor's having a difficult time, but Doom fortunately blasts a hole in the wall, allowing a ton of water to come through, giving Namor the maximum strength for his Atlantean blood.
But what's great about this scene?
What's that?
You mentioned earlier they were being all passive aggressive with each other, amphibian, Latverian. Now they're getting along. Doom says, "Are you with me, Atlantean?" And Namor says, "Aye, master of 1,000 intrigues."
Well, now that they have a foe in common,
Yeah.
A shared enemy will make strange bedfellows almost anywhere.
Yeah. So Doom blasts a hole in the side of the castle, which allows water from the castle moat to come pouring in. So Namor gets his super strength back, and it's going to drown all the androids because Doom very wisely made them air breathers.
Yeah, that's clearly that was his intent, so that he would be able to drown them if they ever rose up in worship of their own god. But then, not to be deterred.
I fucking love Roy Thomas.
This is the best part. Go ahead. Don't worry, Namor.
The androids are drowning. And Namor goes after Andro. He says, "The androids worshipped you and you used them as if they were cattle." And Andro says, "What does that matter to me, sea dog?"
But my favorite bit is the fact that they've basically killed all of these androids. And, Namor's like, "So much for your plans now." And Doom goes, "Oh, don't worry. I have this whole army of robots."
Yeah, that's true. Andro, it turns out, he faces off against Doom. Doom figures out they're evenly matched. And then Andro just teleports away, leaving Doom with the dread knowledge that he's still out there.
Yeah.
But
Andro escapes. Yep. And all the other androids are killed. But again, Namor's concerned that the plans are done. Doom pushes in a stone in the wall. The wall slides back to reveal this army of robots, his robot army. And he says, "We shall plan it all the better for knowing that we've a robot army at our backs, an army upon which we may depend even unto death." But Brian, one of the robots is kind of glancing and watching Doom and Submariner walk away, as if maybe Doom is completely wrong, and even these robots of limited mental capacity are going to rise up, because then the caption box says, "Yes, Victor Von Doom, unto death."
And that brings us to the end of Giant Size Supervillain Team Up issue number 2. Next week, Chris, I guess we'll start with what? Supervillain Team Up issues maybe 1 through 3?
Yes, I think we can probably do 1 through 3. They're shorter than these giant size issues. And I'm looking forward to it because I've read ahead a little bit, and I really enjoyed the appearances of Tiger Shark and Atuma and it gets really fun and very weird.
It does. It does. All right, folks. So that's the show for this week. Just a reminder, our engineer, Matt Wilderson, at home putting these shows together. His new book, Horrors Untold Volume 2, is out right now. You can get both it and Volume 1, of course, on Amazon. Chris, send us home.
Brian, you know what? I think in this episode, you should do the honors.
I should do the Excelsior?
You should.
I don't know. I'm on the spot now. Excelsior, true believers.
See you later, folks.
Defenders Dialogue is a production of the Brian Keene Radio Network. You can listen to this episode and all previous episodes for free on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, YouTube, Google Play Music, and wherever else podcasts are available. Defenders Dialogue is written and produced by Brian Keene and Christopher Golden. Our theme music is by Xander Harris. Our engineer is Matt Wilderson. Check out his books on Amazon.com. If you enjoyed this show, you might enjoy our other podcasts, The Horror Show with Brian Keene, Cosmic Shenanigans, and Grindcast. To advertise on Defenders Dialogue, visit briankeene.com and click Podcasts.